Welcome back to Partnerships Unraveled, the podcast where we dive deep into the mysteries and the secrets of partnerships and the channel. Coming to you from Pax8 Beyond 2026 in Salt Lake City, I'm really happy to sit down with Scott Sacket from AvePoint. Scott, how are you?
I am great. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Hey, before we get into it, I'd like to know a little bit about you, your background, a little bit about AvePoint.
Yeah, I've been at AvePoint now 19 years.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Congrats.
So it's been an unbelievable journey through, being a startup to now, global publicly traded company. And prior to AvePoint, I worked at an MSP. So, of course, channel is rooted in my DNA. And we've lived from the server world in SharePoint to the cloud. And now, of course, we're in this incredible new AI journey, right? And through all of that, AvePoint is now 25 years old.
Yeah.
This July is our 25th anniversary. And we've been able to be part of that journey, really focusing on unstructured data, governance, resilience. And that's been sort of a continuous thread throughout.
Yeah. Must be fascinating to be at a company for 19 years and actually experience in person every single one of those revolutions, right?
It's been an unbelievable experience. People often ask why you stay so long at one place. That's not that common nowadays. And I say, well, truthfully, it feels like I've been at 3 or 4 different companies over that time. We're very agile. We're very quick to, listen to the market and pivot and really, think about how we ultimately solve really hard problems.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable, and I've experienced not through all the revolutions, but I went through the SaaS revolution and, of course, not the AI revolution, and it really does feel like the world almost resets from a technology perspective. Like, okay, this is the starting point of an entirely new era, and it brings so much. I mean, obviously, it does bring some challenges, but it also brings so much excitement.
Yeah,
right, to see where we're going next.
For us, it's a focus on solving hard problems for our partners, solving hard problems for their customers, and typically, if that's your North Star, you turn out okay.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. It's super simple, but really valuable.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so AvePoint went from direct sales first to 100% growth in partner source booking for multiple quarters in a row. What was the shift in how you approached the channel that made that possible, that growth?
Yeah, we always had channel relationships in our early days. We worked with a lot of consultants. We worked with some GSIs. And our roots were in SharePoint. So, enterprise, complex. We weren't going for scale. We weren't really, going for sort of this, channel levered motion. It was much more tactical in that go-to-market. But as, like we talked about, these shifts in the world changed, technology, we really did need channel to help us evolve our business and that go-to-market. And, the channel motion comes in so many different ways. A partner like Pax8 and a 2-tier model is one way, right? Helps you recruit folks like managed service providers. But yeah, we still leverage, of course, resellers and other, other partner vehicles, right? That have, tremendous amounts of influence on the customer decision. What we realized is that, customers, ultimately the end customer, there are a lot of points of influence, and we want to make sure that we have that sort of relationship throughout, before they've even thought about a vendor. Yeah. Right. We want to make sure that people know who we are and what we do and the hard problems we solve.
Yeah, I find that an interesting perspective, because sometimes you think like, oh, my solution is going to probably be packaged in a consolidated solution that an MSP offers, and the end customer might not even know at all. But I think that's not a reason to forget about end customer branding and marketing and positioning as well, because if they have heard of you and they understand your reputation, it's so much easier for them to actually come back to their MSP and say, look, I'm looking for this AvePoint solution as compared to anything else.
No question. Managed services is a really, really valuable part of that partner ecosystem. And as a matter of fact, we see more and more of these other partner types starting to transition or sound really similar to what you would think as a traditional MSP, right? So you could be a LAR, and all of a sudden you have this massive managed services practice that sort of seemed to have come out of nowhere, right? But actually there's been a lot of investment over the years. So, of course, we build 4 different personas. The managed service provider is a very, very important one for us.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I'm just wondering, seeing as obviously your MSP time was a while ago, you've been with AvePoint for 19 years, but did that experience help you kind of shape how you approach MSPs today?
I hope so. Yeah. Not just from a technology perspective, which is everything we build, we want to make sure it integrates and fits into the way the MSP goes to market and how their technology stack works, but also culturally, right? I mean, MSPs have a very specific culture and how they think about their business and the types of vendors that they work with. They want to make sure that the vendor is most importantly focused on them and how they work, right? And we spend a lot of time making sure that our partners and our MSPs are not just getting great technology from us, but they're getting the sort of go-to-market support that helps them be successful, because it's not just about solving the technical problem, it's about helping them build a much bigger business, which as an MSP really resonated with me when vendors treated us that way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think especially for SMB MSPs, that's like, oh, they don't have the resources or capacity to do certain go-to-market motions, and having that support from a vendor in how they go to market is invaluable.
That's right.
Speaking of, most partner programs obviously still hand out tiers based on revenue, but you have a totally different system. You have a points-based system. Can you talk a little bit about that, why that works, what made you make that shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone traditionally had the metallic revenue-based program. And while there's value to it, obviously, something that's been around a long time, there had to have been some value somewhere. Sure. We really wanted to modernize the program and really think more about, well, partners come in all shapes and sizes. And if your program is primarily indexed on revenue, you're really excluding most of the market.
Yeah.
Right. And most of our ecosystem. So we wanted to refactor that to think much more about their investment into AvePoint and our investment back to them. So, revenue is still a component. It has to be.
Sure.
Right. But also things like certifications, really important. How many people do you have certified? Product mix, right? When you're selling, not just how much, but what you're selling, right? How many people are actually trained? Not just, one person has done 1 million certifications, but how much of your team, co-marketing, and so on. So we want to look at from everything from pre-sales to technical support to ultimately sales, and then even things like renewal rate, right? GRR and NRR. And we really want to look at them just as we look at our own sales team, right? We don't just value the guy who is at the top of the leaderboard. We value our sales reps for a variety of different reasons. Yeah. And our MSPs, of course, are in many ways an extension, right, to our business organization, right? So we tried to have a much more comprehensive, robust program that factors in way more than just how much do I sell.
I think that really touches on that we sometimes try to put things in boxes that are just that we already do in real life, in the real world, and we somehow don't apply that to something like a partner program, where I'm thinking of direct sales, where like I used to have colleagues in like enterprise sales, strategic sales, and then commodity sales. And the commodity sales guys, they would have massive numbers, right? But they would still be like, yeah, but you're just selling boxes. Like, yeah, but what difference does that make? And if in a partner program, you're only focused on revenue, that's crazy. It's all relative, right? They're serving different markets, different types of partners. So you're shooting yourself in the foot by doing like a one-size-fits-all program. So something like this makes so much sense.
You're telling the market that they're not important if they don't sell a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And that may not be true. Maybe for some vendors it is. But for us, there's a lot of different partners serving a lot of different really important areas in the market. And we want to make sure there's a place for them in our ecosystem.
Yeah, and it makes sense also from a loyalty perspective almost. If I'm a partner and I'm doing what for me feels like great business, and I get like a cardboard partner status, even though I feel like I'm doing great, and I'm really aligned with the values of the vendor, that's going to make me feel worse about what I'm doing, right? And I think it's such a great element.
Remember, every small partner, or every big partner, should I say, started as a small partner.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to develop those relationships early and build that loyalty.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think if you're looking at Microsoft's 365 right now, MSPs are really kind of sitting on a gold mine, if that's the way I could say it. Copilot adoption, data governance as a boardroom topic, expanding security requirements. So how are you and AvePoint now leveraging that momentum in this new AI?
Yeah, it's so funny. I think it was maybe a week or two ago, CRN had Judson front and center, Judson Althoff, and he quite literally said, AI is now the gold rush for MSPs. Yeah. And specifically, the ability to deliver security and governance services is going to be massively important over the next 2 years. So it's been, for us, sort of reaffirming, because we've been doing governance for 25 years, right? Before the topic was even, or the term was even really popularized.
Thought was cool.
Yeah, exactly. And most people didn't know what governance meant,
Yeah.
right? And so we have really, it's almost re-energized us in many ways. Not that we weren't doing well before. We've always had a great business, but now people actually understand, right off the bat what we're doing, and they're actually starting to seek us out because they know in order to frankly support their customers in their needs to get to this sort of AI era, they need to have a plan. They need to have a services portfolio. And so we've done a tremendous amount of work packaging that for them to make it really, really easy.
Yeah, and especially now, right? It seems for me like we were just talking about RSA before this recording started, and that's an incredible environment to be in, but it's also overwhelming. And at one point you're thinking like, okay, but you say you do that, but that company also says they do that, and that company also says they do that, and everybody seems to be focused on the same thing. Like, how do you differentiate? And you can say like, oh, a brand then is no longer important. It's really about the outcome. But I disagree. Maybe it's because I'm a marketeer.
Right.
I feel like if that's the case, and things almost become commoditized and it's outcome focused, then you can make that difference if you have a strong brand. Where your end customer says, AvePoint, those are the guys that I want to work with because I've heard of them here and I know them here, and that works,
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, we've been doing this 25 years, and we've always focused on, one, the partner, right, making sure they're successful, but also, something that maybe isn't focused as much on as the governance is the data, right, and the underlying data, frankly, is what makes all of this AI stuff work.
Yeah.
Right. And if your data estate is not in the right place, you're in trouble. And that is really sort of, once again, through all these different eras of server to cloud to now AI, that's always where we've lived.
Yeah.
And so understanding data, making sure it's in a governed, secure, resilient state is going to make the difference for your customers ultimately on their success.
Yeah.
Right. And how we enable our partners to do that, right, is key.
Yep.
So, brand is important. The technology and the product is obviously important, and the marketing is important, but it's really that hyper focus on, your core competency and what you're great at that helps deliver value.
Well, and especially now, it's so easy to create their own applications. And I recently had a fantastic conversation with our CTO where I built a messaging hub with Claude, and I said, I want to launch it, like put it behind a gated like password, whatever, on our website. And he said, oh yeah, do you want to be responsible for the data that's on there? And I was like, oh, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. I was like, I made a great app. We want to use it. And I think for a lot of companies, they might be a bit further along than I am, but they're still going to see that kind of stuff happen. People just coding something in Claude and just throwing it into the ether and not thinking about what that means for their data security. So yeah, it becomes more critical now than ever to have a strong focus on it.
Yes, 75% of companies have already built agents or been, testing AI.
Yeah.
But 70% of them don't have a governance plan in place yet. So it tells you that gap is massive.
Yeah.
And, we obviously always want them to think about that before they've done this, but it's shadow IT. It's no different than when Teams rolled out and got really hot during COVID. And all of a sudden there were, tons and thousands and, of teams, out there, and there was no actual ownership. Yeah. And we talk a lot about shared accountability in how you build a governance service, right? Because every team or every agent or every SharePoint site, which we've been doing forever, needs an owner because it needs to be recertified. It needs to be, managed.
Yep.
So that's a really key part of actual governance. And our technology enables a lot of that, right? Yep. So it's just part of the framework that we've been delivering for a long time. So agents are no different than, what we've been experiencing for the last 2 decades.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I've really appreciated having this conversation also on a bit more of a technical level, because obviously like having abstract conversations is interesting in its own right, but to me, like as a tech nerd, I love this. I do want to ask you about what's next. So you built an ecosystem of 6,000 partners across 100 plus marketplaces, with channel now driving 50% of their ARR. Looking from here, Pax8 stage, what's next? What's your channel first vision look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've done really well over the last few years and what will continue to accelerate is building technology for this specific user, right? So, whether it's more investment, which there will be in things like IaaS and PaaS, right? And making sure we govern that better. There's going to be a big opportunity in cost optimization, right? I mean, think about, tokens, and AI is now more expensive than a human, right? I mean, that wasn't the buzzword.
Really? I
Well,
hadn't heard that yet. Makes sense.
the tokens are runaway cost right now. No one really understands, right, how expensive it is to build these agents and the consumption of those agents. So, the cost piece is just like Azure and AWS and GCP, right?
Yeah.
And the other piece that I think we're going to spend a lot of time on is multi-cloud.
Yep.
We spent a lot of time at Google Next a few weeks ago, and we had a great event there. We're seeing more and more partners think less and less about hyperscaler commitment and more about hyperscaler agnostic, right? I'm building agents where I need to, whether it's with, ChatGPT or Anthropic and Claude or whatever it may be, right? Or Copilot Studio. And where my data sits is also in many ways, whether it's Google Workspace or whether it's M365, all that matters is that the data is governed, right? And that you can access that data in a place where you can now pull on those agents, right? And so that sort of multi-cloud play for us, we already support Microsoft, we support Google, we support Salesforce, we support AWS, right? It becomes more and more critical as AI starts really, really spinning up. And because we're in the early innings, right? There's a lot more that we're expecting to come.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I love that. Hey, before we wind down, any final thoughts, words of wisdom for me, for the audience, anybody listening?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in a really exciting time. I mean, they say this is like a 20-year sort of event, right? Server is 20, cloud is 20, and we're in like year 2 of AI, right? So this is everyone involved in AI right now. I mean, we're sort of all the early adopters, and we're the test dummies, right? And we're figuring it out, and we're breaking stuff, and we're experimenting. And 2 years ago, people didn't even know what agents were, right? And so my thought process is, we all need to move fast. We need to try stuff. What's really important today and what we're really excited about is probably not going to be that important in 12 months, right? That's okay. But what's really ultimately, once again, back to the most important thing, focus on the partner, focus on the customer, solve really hard problems and, today. And I think that always, pays itself forward. So, sort of fail forward is a great mantra.
I love that so much. Hey, Scott, thank you so much. And dear listeners, see you in the next episode.